What if your greatest gift was trapped inside a body that refused to grow? What if you carried the hopes of an entire nation on your shoulders, only to fall at the final hurdle again and again and again? How do you become the greatest player in the history of the beautiful game when it seems like destiny itself is against you? This isn't just the story of a football genius. It's a blueprint of quiet resilience, of unwavering loyalty, and of a relentless battle against one's own limits. Today, on Lessons from Legends, we decode the blueprint of a man who had to lose everything to finally win it all. Lionel Messi.
Our story today begins in Rosario, Argentina. It's not a postcard city. It's a vibrant, gritty, working-class port city on the banks of the Paraná River. It's a city forged in the heat of steel factories, a city that smells of industry and the rich soil of the pampas grasslands that surround it. But more than anything, Rosario is a city where football is not just a sport. It is a religion. It is the air that people breathe. It's the conversation in every cafe, the dream of every child, and for many, the only perceived way out. In one of the city's humble neighborhoods, where the brightly colored houses stood proudly but were beginning to fade with time, there was a small, quiet boy named Leo. He was the third of 4 children, and he was never, ever seen without his best friend, a round, often scuffed, leather companion called a football. His father, Jorge Messi, was a man of steel, quite literally. He was a manager at a local steel factory, a man who worked long, hard hours and believed in the value of an honest day's labor. His mother, Celia, worked as a cleaner, her hands just as hard-working as her husband's. Life in the Messi household was not luxurious. There were no grand ambitions spoken of at the dinner table, but it was a home filled with a deep, quiet love and a fierce sense of loyalty. And from the very first moment that little Leo, the smallest of the Messi boys, learned to take his first wobbly steps, a football seemed to be glued to his left foot. It was as if he was born with it already there.
The stories from his childhood are the stuff of local legend, tales whispered in the village squares and local football clubs. And the person who first witnessed this raw, untamed magic was his maternal grandmother, Celia. Leo was just 4 years old. His grandmother, his biggest believer, had taken him to watch his older brothers practice at a small, dusty local club called Grandoli. And on that day, the team of older boys was short one player. And Grandma Celia, with an intuition, a sixth sense we may never fully understand, walked straight up to the coach, a man named Salvador Aparicio, and said, with a conviction that was impossible to ignore, "Put my grandson in." The coach, Aparicio, looked down at this tiny, shy boy who was barely taller than the football itself, and he laughed. "Ma'am," he said, trying to be polite, "he's too young. He's far too small. The ball is bigger than he is. He'll get hurt." But his grandmother wouldn't take no for an answer. She was relentless. "Just put him in," she insisted, her voice firm. You'll see how well he can play." And finally, perhaps just to quiet her down, the coach relented. All right, he sighed. "But if he starts to cry, I'm taking him off immediately."
The moment Leo's small feet touched the football on that rough, uneven pitch, everything changed. The small, painfully shy boy who hid behind his grandmother's legs disappeared. All that was left was a genius, an artist, dancing with the ball. The ball was not a separate object. It was an extension of his body, a loyal pet that followed every command of his left foot. He dribbled past entire teams of kids who were bigger, stronger, and years older than him, as if they were just stationary cones. He weaved through them with a supernatural grace, his tiny body a blur of motion. And then he would score. Goal after goal after goal. It wasn't just talent. It was a kind of magic. It was as if God had sent this child down to earth for the specific purpose of playing the beautiful game.
From that day on, Leo's entire world was football. He didn't just play it, he breathed it, he lived it. He would spend hours dribbling alone in the dusty streets, kicking the ball against a wall as if he were getting to know his best friend as intimately as possible, learning its every bounce, its every secret. He would even take the ball to bed with him. But then, fate, as it so often does with stories that seem too perfect, decided to play a cruel trick. Around the age of 9 or 10, his parents and coaches started to notice something worrying. Leo, the little magician, wasn't growing. He was always the smallest boy on the field, but now the gap was becoming more and more pronounced. While his friends and teammates started to experience their growth spurts, shooting up in height, he seemed to be stuck in time. What started as a small, nagging concern in the back of their minds grew into a larger, more persistent fear. They tried to reassure themselves, he's just a late bloomer. But deep down, they knew something wasn't right. And finally, they decided to take him to a doctor. Imagine this with me. A hard-working, working-class family, saving up what little money they had to take their son to a specialist in the big city. Sitting in a cold, sterile, and intimidating examination room, the air thick with unspoken fears, waiting for a diagnosis that would change their lives forever.
And the diagnosis, when it finally came, was heartbreaking. It was a rare condition called growth hormone deficiency, GHD. Simply put, his small body was not producing enough of the hormones needed to grow. Without treatment, the doctor explained, he would likely never reach a height of more than 150 centimeters, or about 4 feet 11 inches. And the treatment? It existed, but it was a brutal, relentless routine. It meant that this small boy, this child, would have to inject himself with a needle in his own leg every single night for years. And the cost of that medicine, the cost of that hope, was a staggering $900 per month, an astronomical, impossible sum for a steel factory manager and a part-time cleaner in Rosario, Argentina. In that single moment, in that cold, sterile room, all the dreams, all the magic, seemed to shatter into a million pieces. The gift that God had so clearly given him was about to be betrayed by his own body. The little magician was trapped in a curse. It seemed that his magic had a cruel and unforgiving limit.
And so in Barcelona, the fragile boy from Rosario, the boy whose dream was held together by a promise written on a napkin, began to grow. Thanks to the club's support and the daily injections he so bravely administered himself, his body began to catch up to his talent. And as he grew in stature, the legend of the little magician began to grow with him, echoing through the halls of La Masia, Barcelona's famed youth academy. But today, we're not just going to talk about his growth. We're going to talk about his ascension. Because what happened next wasn't just the story of a talented young player making it to the first team. It was the story of a boy becoming a king, and a king becoming a god. The individual God. I'm not exaggerating when I use that word. For a period of more than a decade, what Lionel Messi did on a football pitch defied logic. It defied physics. It defied the very limits of what we thought was humanly possible. The statistics he produced are so absurd, they look like they've been pulled from a video game with the difficulty set to easy. And the ultimate symbol of this individual dominance, the crown jewel of personal achievement in the world of football, is the Ballon d'Or, the Golden Ball. The award given each year to the single best player on the entire planet. To win it once is the dream of every professional footballer. It solidifies your place in history. Messi has won it 8 times. Let that sink in. 8. It's a number so far beyond the realm of normalcy that it's hard to even comprehend. It's a testament to a level of consistent genius that the sport has never seen before and may never see again.
But it's not just the number that's staggering. It's the story behind each one. The first one, in 2009, was the culmination of the Barcelona dream. It was the result of Pep Guardiola's revolutionary tiki-taka system with Messi at its heart, leading the team to an unprecedented 6 trophies in a single year. It was the moment the world officially recognized that this quiet Argentine was the new king of football. But then he did something no one had ever done. He won it again the next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. 4 years in a row. From 2009 to 2012, there was no debate. There was no question. There was only Messi. This was the era of his absolute, undisputed peak. The video game era. The era where, in a single calendar year, 2012, he scored an unbelievable 91 goals. 91! A record that shattered the previous one held by the legendary Gerd Müller, a record that had stood for 40 years. It was a feat of such ridiculous consistency that it felt like a glitch in the Matrix. But as with all great legends, a rival emerged. Cristiano Ronaldo, a physical marvel,
a relentless goal-scoring machine. And for the next decade, these two titans would push each other to unimaginable heights. The Ballon d'Or ceremony became their personal battleground. Ronaldo would win one, then Messi would win one back. Their rivalry defined an entire generation of football.
And Messi kept winning. Even as he got older, even as his explosive pace began to fade slightly, his genius only seemed to deepen. He won it in 2015, after another historic treble-winning season with Barcelona. He won it in 2019, almost single-handedly dragging his team to a league title. And then came the most remarkable ones. The one in 2021, after he had left his lifelong club of Barcelona in a tearful farewell, and led Argentina to their first major trophy in 28 years, the Copa América. And finally, the eighth one, in 2023, the one that solidified his legacy forever. The one that came after he had finally captured the one prize that had always eluded him, the one trophy that would complete his story, the World Cup. But the numbers, as staggering as they are only a part of the story. They are the what. But to truly understand the legend of Messi, you have to understand the how. The magician on the pitch. Because what made Messi a god wasn't just the statistics, it was the magic he created on the field. The great coach, Pep Guardiola, the man who oversaw his rise to greatness, realized very early on that you couldn't put Messi in a box. You couldn't give him a traditional position. He was too creative, too intelligent, too unpredictable. So, he invented a new position just for him, the false nine. It was a role that gave Messi the ultimate freedom, the freedom to roam, to explore, to create, to be the conductor of the entire orchestra. And every time the ball was at his feet, it was like the entire stadium held its breath. Time itself seemed to slow down. He could dribble through 3, 4, 5 players who were desperately trying to stop him, with an ease that was almost insulting. The ball was like a part of his body, an obedient pet that followed every subtle command of his left foot. It was like watching a master artist paint a masterpiece in real time. And his passing, the killer pass, it was a form of clairvoyance. He saw things on the field that no one else could see. He saw passes that didn't exist yet. It was as if he could see the future 2 or 3 seconds ahead of everyone else. And he would play the ball not to where a player was, but to where they were going to be. And of course, the goals. The sheer variety of them was breathtaking. The powerful shots from outside the box. The delicate, audacious chips over a helpless goalkeeper. The impossible free kicks that seemed to defy the laws of physics. And the signature move. The mazy, winding dribble from the halfway line, leaving a trail of defenders in his wake before slotting the ball into the corner of the net. It was like watching a magician who held 100,000 people in the palm of his hand, waiting to see what impossible trick he would perform next. And the consistency of this magic is perhaps the most incredible part of all.
The award for the man of the match, the best player in a single game, he has won it more times than any other player in history. So many times that it became normal. If he didn't win it, that was the big news. It was a level of sustained excellence, week after week, year after year, that the world had never seen before. At the club level, he was a god. He had won everything. He had broken every record. He was, without any doubt, the greatest individual player the world had ever seen. The debate was over.
But the numbers, as staggering as they are only a part of the story. They are the what. They are the cold, hard facts that statisticians will pore over for decades to come. But to really understand the legend of Messi, to feel the phenomenon, you have to understand the how. The magician on the pitch. Because what made Messi a god wasn't just the statistics. It wasn't the trophies or the records. It was the magic he created on the field. It was the feeling you got watching him, a feeling that you were witnessing something impossible, something that defied the laws of physics and the limits of human potential.
The great coach, Pep Guardiola, the man who oversaw his ascension to greatness, realized this very early on. He knew you couldn't put Messi in a box. You couldn't give him a traditional position like striker or winger. It would be like giving Leonardo da Vinci only a single color of paint to work with. He was too creative, too intelligent, too unpredictable. So Guardiola did something revolutionary. He invented a new position just for him, the false nine.
It was a role that gave Messi the ultimate freedom, the freedom to roam, to explore, to drift between the lines, to be the conductor of the entire orchestra. He wasn't just a player. He was the gravitational center of the entire team. And the ball, like a loyal planet, was always in his orbit. And every time that ball was at his feet, it was like the entire stadium, 100,000 people, held its breath in unison. Time itself seemed to slow down. You could see defenders, world-class athletes in their own right, suddenly look panicked. Their game plan, their defensive structure that they had practiced all week, it all went out the window. Because you can't have a plan for chaos. You can't have a system for magic. His dribbling, it was something otherworldly. He could run faster with the ball at his feet than most players could run without it. The ball was not a separate object that he was kicking. It was an extension of his body, a loyal pet that followed every subtle command of his left foot, glued to his laces as if by an invisible string. This was a direct result of his physical limitation, the very thing that was supposed to destroy his dream. His low center of gravity, a side effect of his growth hormone deficiency, gave him a supernatural ability to change direction, to stop and start, to weave and turn in a way that was simply impossible for taller, bigger defenders. He turned his supposed weakness into his greatest weapon. There are goals that are now etched into the memory of football history. The goal against Getafe in 2007,
where he picked up the ball in his own half and dribbled past half their team, rounding the goalkeeper in a goal so eerily similar to Diego Maradona's goal of the century that it sent chills down the spine of every Argentinian. It was the moment the world knew that the heir to Maradona's throne had arrived. Or the goal against Athletic Bilbao in the 2015 Copa del Rey final. Surrounded by 3 defenders on the sideline, a complete dead end for any other player. But for Messi, it was just the start of the maze. With a series of impossibly quick touches and shimmies, he slipped through them like a ghost, cut inside, beat another defender, and smashed the ball into the net. It was a goal born of pure, unadulterated genius.
And then there was his passing. The killer pass. It was a form of clairvoyance. He saw things on the field that no one else could see. Not even the commentators watching from a bird's eye view. He saw passes that didn't exist yet. It was as if he could see the future, 2 or 3 seconds ahead of everyone else. He would play the ball not to where a teammate was, but to where they were going to be. A perfectly weighted pass that would slice through a defense like a surgeon's scalpel. And of course, the goals. The sheer, breathtaking variety of them was a spectacle in itself. There were the powerful, blistering shots from outside the box that would fly into the top corner before the goalkeeper even had time to react. There were the delicate, audacious chips, where he would see the keeper just a few yards off his line and, with a touch as soft as a feather, lift the ball over his head. A moment of pure, beautiful arrogance.
And the impossible free kicks. For years, this was considered a weaker part of his game. So, what did he do? He practiced endlessly. He stayed behind after every training session, taking free kick after free kick until he had mastered the art, turning a weakness into one of his most deadly weapons. He developed a technique that seemed to defy the laws of physics, getting the ball up and over the wall and down again with incredible speed and accuracy. And then there was the signature move, the move that every defender in the world knew was coming, but no one could ever stop. The mazy, winding dribble from the right wing, cutting inside onto his left foot, leaving a trail of fallen, heartbroken defenders in his wake, before curling the ball with impossible precision into the far corner of the net. He scored that same goal over and over and over again. It was his masterpiece, his signature on the canvas of the game. It was like watching a magician who held 100,000 people in the palm of his hand, in a state of suspended disbelief, waiting to see what impossible trick, what moment of pure, unexplainable beauty he would perform next. And the consistency of this magic is perhaps the most incredible part of all. The award for the man of the match, the best player in a single game, he has won it more times than any other player in history. So many times that it became normal. It became an expectation. If he didn't win it, that was the big news. It was a level of sustained, week-in, week-out excellence for over 15 years that the world had never seen before. At the club level, he was a god. He had won everything. He had broken every record. He had redefined what was possible. He was, without any doubt, the greatest individual player the world had ever seen. The debate was over.
But amidst all the individual glory, the godlike status at his club, there was always a shadow. A large, painful, ever-present shadow that followed him everywhere he went. It was a shadow that no amount of club trophies could erase. A shadow that no number of Ballon d'Or awards could illuminate. It was the shadow of his failures with his country, Argentina. For Argentinians, football is not just a game. It is life. It is passion. It is a source of national pride and often a source of national pain. And the number 10 shirt, the La 10, once worn by the great, the immortal Diego Maradona, the man who had single-handedly, almost divinely, won them the World Cup in 1986, is a sacred, almost impossible burden. And for years, that sacred burden seemed destined to crush Lionel Messi.
The heartbreaks. We all remember it. The 2014 World Cup final in Brazil, the biggest stage of them all, the Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, the cathedral of football, filled with a sea of blue and white. This was it. This was the moment for Messi to finally silence the critics, to finally step out of Maradona's shadow and claim his own place in the pantheon of gods. The journey to that final had been a testament to his genius. He had carried his team on his back, scoring crucial goals, creating magic out of nothing. But the final against Germany, it was different. It wasn't a game of beautiful football. It was a war, a brutal, agonizing battle of wills that stretched on for 112 grueling minutes. Every tackle, every pass, every shot was laced with the unbearable weight of a nation's hopes and dreams.
And then, in the 113th minute of extra time, with penalties looming like a guillotine, it happened. A single moment, a single lapse in concentration, a single goal from Germany's Mario Götze. And just like that, it was over. The dream was shattered. The hopes of 40 million Argentinians turned to dust. The image that followed is one of the most heartbreaking in the history of sports. The image of Lionel Messi, the best player in the world, having to walk up to the podium to receive the Golden Ball Award for the tournament's best player, and having to walk right past the gleaming gold of the World Cup trophy. His eyes, usually so full of life and creativity, were filled with a deep, hollow, and soul-crushing emptiness. It was the look of a man who had conquered the world, but had lost the one thing that truly mattered.
But the pain, the heartbreak, it didn't stop there. As if fate, in its cruelest form, wanted to torture him, wanted to test the very limits of his spirit. The very next year, the 2015 Copa América final, a chance for redemption, a chance to finally win a major trophy for his country. And it was against their bitter rivals, Chile. The game was another tense, goalless affair, and it went to a penalty shootout.
and Argentina lost. 1 year later, 2016, a special centennial edition of the Copa América held in the United States, another final, another chance, and again, unbelievably, it was against the same rival, Chile. And again, in a moment of cruel, almost comical déjà vu, the game went to a penalty shootout.
This time, Messi, the greatest player in the world, the man who never misses, the man who carries the weight of the world on his shoulders, stepped up to take the first penalty for his team. The entire world was watching. The weight of 3 consecutive final losses pressing down on him. He took a deep breath, he ran up, and he missed. He blasted the ball over the bar. And again, Argentina lost. 3 finals, 3 consecutive years, 3 devastating, soul-crushing, and almost identical losses. The weight of it all was simply too much. After that final loss in 2016, a broken, tearful, and emotionally shattered Lionel Messi walked into the post-match interview and announced his retirement from the national team. It felt like the end. The hero, the god of football, had finally given up.
When history writes about Lionel Messi, the Copa América of 2021 will never be a footnote. It will be a chapter of redemption, a moment where decades of hope, despair, and criticism converged into a single night of liberation. For years, Messi's story with Argentina was painted with pain. 4 finals lost, endless comparisons to Diego Maradona, the narrative that he could conquer the world with Barcelona but falter with his homeland. Each defeat had left scars, not just on Messi, but on a nation that demanded from him nothing less than immortality. But destiny gave him one more chance, and this time he seized it. The weight of the Maracanã. The setting could not have been more poetic. The Maracanã in Rio de Janeiro, the cathedral of football. The very stadium where Argentina had suffered their heartbreak in the 2014 World Cup final against Germany. 7 years later, Messi returned to that same ground, but this time the script was different. No longer the young prodigy carrying the burden of expectation alone. Messi was now a leader seasoned by pain, matured by setbacks, and driven by an almost spiritual determination to rewrite his story. Every Argentine fan knew the stakes. This wasn't just about winning a trophy. It was about redemption. It was about silencing the critics once and for all. It was about Messi proving to himself and to the world that he could wear the sky blue and white of Argentina and emerge victorious. A tournament of grit. The 2021 Copa América was unlike any before it. Originally planned for Argentina and Colombia, the tournament was moved to Brazil amid a global pandemic. The conditions were surreal. Empty stands, strict health protocols, and a sense of uncertainty that loomed over every match. But for Messi, nothing would derail his mission. From the opening game, he played like a man possessed. His free kick against Chile was a statement, a curling masterpiece into the top corner, reminding everyone that his left foot was still football's most magical weapon. He followed it with assists, dribbles, and leadership that electrified his teammates. Against Ecuador in the quarterfinals, Messi delivered perhaps his best performance of the tournament. 2 assists and a breathtaking free kick goal that sealed Argentina's place in the semifinals.
Every touch radiated determination. Every move screamed, "This time will be different."
The brotherhood of a team. For much of his career, Messi's critics claimed Argentina never gave him the same support Barcelona did. But in 2021, that narrative collapsed. This Argentina was not about stars, it was about brothers. Rodrigo de Paul, a tireless midfielder, became Messi's shield and engine. Emiliano Martinez, the goalkeeper who had waited years for his chance, became the hero in penalty shootouts. Lautaro Martinez, Ángel Di María, Nicolau Otamendi, they all gave themselves fully, not for personal glory, but for Messi. For the first time in years, Messi was not alone, and you could see it on the pitch. Every time he was fouled, and he was fouled relentlessly, his teammates swarmed to defend him. Every goal he scored, they celebrated not just with joy, but with reverence. They wanted to win this for themselves, but even more, they wanted to win it for him. The final against Brazil. And so came July 10th, 2021. Argentina versus Brazil, a final in the Maracanã, the eternal rivalry of South America played on Brazilian soil. It was the ultimate stage. The game itself was cagey, tense, full of fouls and drama. Brazil attacked with Neymar, Richarlison, and Vinicius Jr., but Argentina stood firm. And then, in the 22nd minute, came the moment. Rodrigo de Paul launched a perfect ball over the top, and Ángel Di María, the eternal nearly man of Argentina football, controlled it with elegance before chipping it over the goalkeeper. 1-0. Every Argentine heart skipped a beat. Was this the night? The minutes that followed were agony. Brazil pushed. Argentina defended with everything. Messi himself missed a golden chance late in the game, stumbling in front of goal. For a moment, fans feared fate would be cruel again. But when the final whistle blew, the world stopped. Messi's tears of liberation. Messi sank to his knees on the Maracanã pitch. Tears streamed down his face. His teammates rushed to him, not just to celebrate, but to carry him literally on their shoulders. They knew what this meant. They knew how long he had suffered. After years of heartbreak, Messi had done it. He was a champion with Argentina. The images became instantly iconic. Messi weeping into the night. Messi embraced by Neymar in mutual respect. Messi hoisted by his teammates as if the entire nation was lifting him up. For decades, Argentines had demanded he match Maradona's triumph. And on this night, he did.
The meaning of redemption. Redemption is not just about winning. It's about transformation. For Messi, this Copa América was the release of a lifetime of tension. He had always said he played for Argentina to honor his roots, his family, his childhood dreams. But for years, those dreams had brought him only pain. This trophy changed everything. It wasn't the World Cup yet, but in many ways, it was just as significant. It restored his relationship with the Argentine people. No longer was he the Barcelona legend who failed with his country. He was now the hero who delivered joy when it was needed most. The critics silenced. Before 2021, even Messi's greatness was questioned. He can't do it for Argentina. He'll never win without Barcelona. These were the refrains repeated endlessly by doubters. After the Copa América, those voices fell silent. The narrative shattered.
Messi had proven he could lead his country to glory, and he hadn't done it in an easy way. He did it in Brazil, in the Maracanã, against their greatest rivals. It was a triumph that transcended sport. The blueprint taking shape. In the blueprint of Messi's life, the Copa América was the chapter that showed resilience at its purest. He had failed, he had suffered, but he had never given up. Think about this. Most players, after losing 4 finals, would have walked away. Most would have accepted the story was over. But Messi stayed. He fought. He endured the criticism, the humiliation, the heartbreak. And because he endured, he was rewarded. The blueprint lesson here is clear. Redemption is not about erasing failure. It's about embracing it, carrying it, and continuing to move forward until the moment arrives when all the pain is transformed into triumph. Looking ahead. But even in the joy of that night, Messi knew the journey was not complete. The Copa América was redemption, but there was still one mountain left unclimbed: the World Cup. And so, as Messi lifted the Copa Coffee high above his head, the world celebrated with him, but also wondered, could this be the spark that would finally ignite Argentina's ultimate dream?
The final mountain. For Lionel Messi, the Copa América of 2021 had been redemption. It had silenced critics, restored his bond with Argentina, and lifted the unbearable weight of expectation. Yet, as glorious as that night at the Maracanã was, one mountain still loomed larger than any other: the FIFA World Cup. The tournament that defines legacies. The trophy that had eluded Messi since he first wore the Argentina shirt in 2006. He had come agonizingly close in Brazil in 2014, only to leave in tears after Mario Götze's extra-time strike for Germany shattered his dream. For 8 years, that scar lingered. Every question, every interview, every debate circled back to the same demand: but can Messi win the World Cup? By the time Qatar 2022 arrived, Messi was 35 years old. This, everyone knew, was his last chance. Qatar 2022, a world watching. The stage could not have been more surreal. Qatar, a desert nation, hosting the world's greatest sporting event. Stadiums rose like futuristic temples under the scorching sun. Billboards of Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, and Mbappé covered entire skyscrapers. For Messi, the pressure was suffocating. He was not just carrying Argentina, he was carrying the weight of history. Maradona had delivered in 1986. Could Messi finally step into that same light, decades later? A nightmare start. On November 22, 2022, Argentina began their campaign against Saudi Arabia. The script seemed perfect. Messi scored a penalty, the Albiceleste dominated possession, and fans expected a comfortable win. Then chaos. Saudi Arabia scored twice in quick succession. Argentina's attacks were disallowed for offside again and again. When the final whistle blew, the unthinkable had happened. Argentina lost 2-1. The world erupted in shock. Headlines screamed of humiliation. Critics resurfaced with familiar cynicism. Messi's dream ends before it begins. But Messi remained calm. After the game, he addressed his teammates. "Stay calm, stay united. This is only the beginning. If we win the next two, we'll go through." Those words, simple yet powerful, steadied Argentina. For the first time, Messi was not just the star, he was the captain, the anchor, the voice of belief. The final. Argentina versus France. December 18th, 2022. Lusail Stadium. Over 88,000 fans inside, billions more watching around the globe. Argentina versus France. Messi versus Mbappe. The king of one generation against the prince of the next. The game began with Argentina on fire. Di Maria, reborn after missing the 2014 final through injury, tormented France down the left. In the 23rd minute, Messi calmly converted a penalty after Di Maria was fouled. The stadium exploded. Minutes later, a breathtaking team move ended with Di Maria finishing coolly. 2-0. Argentina were dominant. At halftime, it looked like the dream was finally within reach. But football has a way of testing even the greatest stories. In the 80th minute, Kylian Mbappe scored a penalty to make it 2-1. Just a minute later, he unleashed a thunderous volley. 2-2. In the blink of an eye, Argentina's dream was in danger again. Extra time. Nerves shredded. Messi, exhausted but unbreakable, struck in the 108th minute, smashing home a rebound. 3-2. Argentina roared, Messi's face lit with defiance. But again, Mbappe answered. Another penalty. 3-3. A World Cup final unlike any other. A duel between two titans.
The penalty shootout. As the shootout began, the world held its breath. Messi stepped up first for Argentina. Calm, composed, he rolled the ball into the net. Emi Martinez, Argentina's goalkeeper, became a hero, saving and taunting the French players, channeling the spirit of gamesmanship. Gonzalo Montiel buried the decisive kick. Argentina had won, 4-2 on penalties. Messi collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed by tears. His teammates swarmed him, lifting him high, just as they had in 2021, but this time the trophy in his hands was the World Cup. Messi's immortality. The images from that night are eternal. Messi kissing the World Cup. Messi walking through a corridor of his teammates who bowed to him. Messi finally crowned as the greatest of all time. In Buenos Aires, millions flooded the streets. In Rosario, his hometown, fans wept with joy. Around the world, people who had never even supported Argentina celebrated as if it were their own victory. Because Messi was not just Argentina's hero, he belonged to everyone. This was more than football. It was a global moment of beauty, perseverance, and humanity. The debate ends. For years, the debate had raged, Messi or Maradona, Messi or Pelé. After Qatar, the argument felt irrelevant. Messi had done it all, club glory, personal awards, and now the ultimate crown. But what made his triumph even more profound was the journey. He had failed, suffered, been criticized, even retired once from international duty, and yet he came back. He endured, he grew, and he conquered. That is why the World Cup meant so much. It was not just victory, it was vindication. And so, after all the heartbreaks, after all the triumphs, we arrive at the blueprint. The lessons from Lionel Messi, not just the footballer, but the man. Lesson 1. Turn your weakness into your weapon. What was supposed to end his career, his small frame, his growth hormone deficiency, became the very thing that made him unstoppable. Your greatest limitation can become your greatest strength. Lesson 2. Stay loyal to your craft. Messi lived with the ball. It wasn't practice, it was life. He breathed it, he slept with it, he gave his entire soul to it. If you want to be legendary, you must commit at a level that others can't even imagine. Lesson 3. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Messi was never the loudest in the room. He wasn't a talker, he was a doer. On the pitch, his feet told the story. Greatness doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers.
Lesson 4. Embrace failure, but don't let it define you. Messi lost finals. He retired in tears. The world thought it was over, but he came back stronger. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. Lesson 5. Find strength in your team. For years, people said Messi could only win with Barcelona, but when he finally lifted the Copa América and then the World Cup, it proved that even the greatest magician needs his orchestra. No legend is built alone. Lesson 6. Consistency is greatness. Anyone can be great once, but Messi was great for 2 decades, week after week, year after year, season after season. True greatness is not a moment. It is a lifetime. Lesson 7. Play with joy. For all the pressure, all the expectations, when Messi plays, it looks like a child in the streets of Rosario. Joy is the fuel of genius.
And finally, Lesson 8. Leave a legacy, not just records. Records will be broken, numbers will be surpassed, but the feeling Messi gave us, the magic, that will live forever. Your true legacy is how you make people feel. This is the blueprint of Lionel Messi. Not just a legend of football, but a lesson in resilience, in loyalty, in humility, and in magic. Because in the end, greatness isn't about being the loudest or the strongest or even the tallest. It's about never giving up on your gift. It's about carrying the weight of the world and still finding joy in the game. That is Lionel Messi, and that is the lesson from a legend. And now, we'd love to hear from you. Which legend's blueprint should we decode next? Leave your suggestion in the comments below, and Harry and the team will bring every story you care about to life. Thank you for watching. And until next time, this has been Lessons from Legends.